in lieu of affordability being what it is and interest rates being high, people are going to come up with a way to move. People still have to move. The typical way you move or upgrade or relocate is you talk to an agent, you sell your property. Meanwhile, you're also looking for another one. You sell this one, buy the next one. Cool, we're done. It's not working for a lot of people because it's becoming a lateral move, if not worse, in their payment. That's just kind of a pill that has to be swallowed regardless. But they're not qualifying for the next home. Like homeowners right now can't qualify for a home if they went back and tried now 3-4 years later, if they tried in 2020, 2021. Leaving the property and renting it out, getting their own rental property, and sitting in that rental property so that they can now claim the income of their old one. So now, whenever they go to apply for that mortgage, they will be able to afford the next property because the rental income, because you now have a ratified lease that's paying on that rental income, now that mortgage on that first home isn't seen as a debt to your name. The surplus is actually just seen as an income, and the expense is wiped.
Right.
I think that's a pretty smooth strategy. And then you also got a 12-month span where you're rolling the dice on what happens with home prices in that interim. But hopefully you get a lower interest rate at the end of that. What do you think about that?
So you're talking about, like, if you own a home, you rent it?
Rent it out. Yeah, you find another rental property.
You rent another house.
Rent another. So instead of walking into buying another home, which for the most part, there's a lot of people saying they can't just flat out do. Either they can't get pre-approved for it, can't find something. So find a rental property. You sit in the rental property for the 12-month span while renting out your other home.
That's interesting. I really hadn't considered that.
It's a newer thought process.
Yeah. I guess my first thought is obviously now you're paying rent, likely inflated rent on something else.
Sure.
So that's depleting your funds.
That would depend on the situation. I think you're looking at. I think the people doing this, from what I've seen, are downsizing. And so they're keeping, like, for example, they may come from a $1,500 mortgage to a $1,850 rent. So higher, but now their mortgage is getting paid for them, so that equity's growing. And the expense is wiped off their DTI, so now they can afford more as a pre-approval.
Right. And this is assuming they can't qualify because they own a home, or they can't qualify for what they want because the interest rate is high.
Probably a mixture.
Okay.
I think just overall affordability being the issue.
Yeah.
I can't afford to even with the equity I make off this home, I probably am not going to be able to make enough to buy this next property. So this 12-month rental, I wait for interest rates to come down. My equity builds up. I can put some money away.
Right.
And at the end of the 12-month lease, I then have the opportunity maybe to keep my rental property, keep my home, and buy another property, which would be a pretty optimum situation for most. Some people would be like, hey, I'm trying to get my first home. I hear you. That's still a problem.
Right.
But for those that already own one.
Right. And I guess it would depend on your financial situation, because by not selling this home, you haven't collected on the equity.